The winter was especially harsh. Snowstorms covered the roads, turning the forest into a white desert. In a small cabin on the edge of the taiga lived Mikhail, a man who had once been a hunter but now preferred solitude. He had long abandoned city life, finding peace in the quiet of nature. One evening, as the wind howled fiercely, Mikhail heard scratching at his door. At first, he thought it was just the wind, but then he heard a faint whimper. Approaching the door cautiously, he opened it slightly and froze. 2 wolves stood on his doorstep. Their fur was covered in snow. They shivered from the cold, and their eyes held a look of desperation. Mikhail knew that wild animals didn't come to humans without reason. He closed the door, but couldn't forget their eyes. A moment later, he opened it again. The wolves hadn't moved. They didn't growl or try to attack. They simply stood there, waiting. Taking a deep breath, Mikhail stepped aside, allowing them to enter. The wolves cautiously walked in and, as if understanding they were safe, lay down near the fireplace. He threw an old fur blanket toward them and poured some water into a bowl. One of the wolves only sighed deeply and closed its eyes. That night, Mikhail woke up to a soft tug on his sleeve. One of the wolves was gently pulling at his arm, while the other stood by the door, scratching at it. They wanted him to follow. He grabbed a lantern and stepped into the cold night. The wolves led him through the forest until they stopped near a fallen tree. Beneath a heavy branch, something moved. Mikhail knelt down and saw a small wolf pup buried in the snow. Its paw was pinned beneath the weight of the branch, and it barely breathed. It became clear. These wolves had come to him to save their child. Gathering all his strength, Mikhail lifted the branch. The pup tried to move, but its leg was too weak. One of the adult wolves approached and gently licked its face, reassuring it. When the wolves disappeared into the forest, Mikhail stood still among the trees, realizing he had become part of something greater. Days passed, and the wolves did not return. Mikhail nearly forgot the incident until one morning he found something strange on his doorstep, a fresh piece of meat and several pine cones. It was a gift. Weeks later, as he stepped outside for firewood, he saw familiar silhouettes at the edge of the forest. The 2 adult wolves and their young pup stood watching him. They didn't approach, nor did they run away. The next day, hunters arrived in the village. They spoke of a wolf pack that had supposedly attacked livestock. Mikhail knew his new friends were in danger. When the hunters set off into the forest with their rifles, Mikhail followed, not to hunt, but to warn the wolves. When he found them, the pack was already on alert. The young pup whimpered anxiously, while the adult wolves sniffed the air. "Go," Mikhail whispered, hoping they would understand. But then, a gunshot rang out. One of the hunters spotted Mikhail. "What are you doing here?" "Just taking a walk," he replied calmly. The hunters left, but Mikhail knew his home was now under watch. Days passed, and the wolves did not return. Mikhail started to worry, but one night, he heard a familiar whimper. Opening the door, he saw the young wolf pup standing alone, shivering from the cold. Mikhail let it inside, and soon after, its father appeared. The wolf stepped forward and gently pressed its head against Mikhail's hand. It was a gesture of ultimate trust. From that day on, Mikhail was never alone again. The wolves had become part of his life. He had found a family, one he never expected.